there! Welcome to what's happening in Brazil. Let's start with the latest news from the country.
On April 13th, the Brazilian Senate launched a parliamentary commission to look into the federal government's actions and possible crimes during the pandemic. The commission will investigate cases like the lack of oxygen supply in hospitals in the city of Manaus, located in the state of Amazonas, which led to the deaths of more than 30 COVID-19 patients in January of this year. According to specialists, the inquiry will likely further damage Jair Bolsonaro's image and increase his government's disapproval rating among the population. Due to this, the president tried to get into the way of the probe before it even began. Bolsonaro called Senator Jorge Cajuru and pressured the lawmaker into altering the goal of the investigation so as to include state governors and mayors in the probe. The call was recorded and shared with the public by the senator himself. During the month of March, 52.2% of intensive care unit admissions were people under the age of 40. There has also been a rise in the number of persons with no comorbidities who are requiring the use of ventilators. The data points to a shift in the profile of those being most affected by the disease. At the outset of the pandemic, COVID-19 impacted the elderly and those with pre-existing conditions more often. This turnaround may have occurred because of the new variants of the virus that have been detected in Brazil. According to preliminary studies, the P1 variant, which was first identified in the city of Manaus, is more capable of spreading among the youth.
The relationship between President Jair Bolsonaro and police has taken a hit. The point of contention is a proposed constitutional amendment that takes away certain rights from the sector. Representatives for the security forces believe that this may lead to a lowering of the quality of the services they provide.
Today, public security agents are at the lowest point of their relationship with President Jair Bolsonaro. Criticism of the government has intensified after the approval of a proposed constitutional amendment that caps salaries and admissions exams for up to 15 years. According to the government, the proposal is necessary to once again make emergency aid payments available to low-income families. However, for the police, it is an act of opportunism by the Bolsonaro administration.
Isso vai trazer grande prejuízo.
This will bring about a lot of hurt, mainly for a sector which historically receives low wages and where there is little expectation of advancement. This will have a huge impact on the services provided. He's losing a lot of support among the police.
Sheriff Orlando Zacconi believes that the sector will become more precarious and calls attention to the mental health of officers. At the end of March, Soldier Wesley Soares from the state of Bahia had a psychotic breakdown and was killed after shooting at other officers.
This mental health issue among officers must be watched, because a police officer working exhaustively for long periods of time, attempting to complement his salary to be able to live with dignity, this is very dangerous for society. This government proposal will aggravate this even more.
The government's delay in vaccinating police officers working on the front lines during a pandemic has also shaken the confidence of security agents in Bolsonaro.
Here in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, he had more than 1/5 of the civil police infected with COVID. The military police saw an increase of 300% in the number of cases from the end of the last year to now. Then it was a crass mistake and shows that he really has no concern for us and doesn't see public security professionals as a priority in his government.
Let's now go to the state of Pará to meet a group of indigenous women who play and dance carimbó, one of the region's main cultural traditions.
Carimbó is a tool of resistance for the Suraras do Tapajós, a collective of indigenous women engaged in the fight against violence and racism and in the struggle for land in the Alter do Chão region located in the state of Pará.
Surara means warrior in Nhangatu tongue, which is the indigenous language spoken here.
We are the first carimbó group formed solely by indigenous women.
Carimbó is a rhythm typical of the state of Pará and Brazilian cultural heritage. Sonority, instruments, and dance fuse elements of indigenous, African, and Iberian culture. The name comes from the indigenous percussion instrument called curimbó, a word from the Tupi language that means hollow stick.
Então a gente tem o básico.
The basic instruments in carimbó are the maraca, curimbó, banjo, guitar and voices. You have these basics, but you can increment with other instruments.
Sacode as maracás, pé no chão, pão no cabelo. Sacode as maracás, pé no chão, pão no cabelo.
In the old days, only men could handle the instruments. Therefore, the Suraras do Tapajós believe that carimbó is also a form of female empowerment.
Digamos que a nossa...
It's our tool. It is an additional fighting tool for women's resistance and empowerment, mainly through the words of our compositions.
At the end of 2020, the group launched their first music video from the song Suraras da Beira do Rio.
And now it's time for Brazilianism.
Vou fazer uma receita muito querida.
Today I'll be making a recipe that is dear to and enjoyed by everybody, arancine. It's made with leftover rice, which is something everyone has at home. The most important tip for making good arancine, and you don't need to use flour to make it stick, is heating the rice. I add a little bit of water, close the lid, place the pan on a frying pan and heat it on the smallest stove top for about 15 minutes. After it's warmed up, I squeeze the rice using this potato masher, but you can use a mixer or blender. I'm gonna add a lot of parsley. I'll also be generous with the pepper, diced onions, grated cheese. I'm gonna add 1 egg. If needed, I'll add more depending on how the dough looks. I will also add salt. A tip: leave one of your hands clean and use the other to knead. Check out the dough, it's super firm. To roll up the arancine, leave a cup of water next to you and wet your hands as you go. I'm gonna start frying the arancine, since my oil is already really hot. The advice for frying is not putting too many of them in at once, because it will lower the oil's temperature and they get too soggy. I'm now taking out the first arancine that I fried. Look at how delicious it is. Here it is, our arancine with pepper sauce.
Liked the show? So hit the like button and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive notifications. We'll see you next week.